Properties of Pryzmea. Very few people seem to be interested in this topic, but for archival purposes I wish to put down what I was shown. Though described more thoroughly in the Pryzmean anthology, Spirit has recently given me new insights. What I describe here is summarized at best, a synopsis at most. Remember, thousands of hours, dozens of notebooks of auto writings, probably a few dozen channelings, over a 25-year span from Anu to Urian, have focused on discussions about the nature of this place. I am not, however, a scientist, neither do I have a scientific mind. A Urian mystic of future days with mathematical and/or knowledge of physics will be able to gain insights about this place that I have no ability to comprehend. Yet I'm told that eventually almost all of humanity, nearly all life forms from Earth, will wind up there when life ends here. Returning to the source, the root universe of many parallels, most will be like blanks, ergo reborn to start anew. Where they go, the worlds or forms they take, as mixed seeds scattered across the face of Pryzmea, is determined by who they became, what they truly were, here. Where we are. We are in a universe that Spirit has called Ninierta. Spirit has spoken of a vast ocean of proto-substance, neither energy or matter, but as if liquefied consciousness, in which our universe and all others drift as if so many jellyfish in an infinite sea. In truth, that ocean of energized thought defies human logic and description, yet sometimes described as having a liquidic-like quality, full of sunset colors, more colors than we can imagine, and clouds of pre-existent and transcendent sparks of life forms, life sparks. It, the transuniversal, has a center, like a great light, but moving toward it, one never seems to reach the core thereof. In some visions, it, that center, appears as a great tree of light, made up of particles that are countless universes. Our universe floats or is within this plane or dimension that is beyond universes, and a medium between universes, which is called the transuniversal. Corridors of mind, spirit connect every world and star within our universe, and indeed lesser strands or conduits of consciousness connect living things, grouping them together as if galaxies of minds/spirits, when seen in the proper dimensional frame. Spirit has said repeatedly, consciousness is the basis, the foundation of reality. That is to say, the mind of God. As you live your life, you are living within a mind, a mental/spiritual construct that has taken on a life of its own, and that life/mind seeks to keep you here perpetually. It's why physical choices have psychic spiritual consequences, because everything we do is actually mental spiritual. Through individuation and developing a personal bond/connection with the Supreme Being, that tree of life in the transuniversal plane, which might be termed the monad or the one, you gain access both through the conduits of consciousness within our universe and the roads that lead out of our universe. Imagine that your mind is connected to a spiritual/mental internet. Your brain/mind is plugged into a local group of minds, birds of your own feather, and that to a larger group, and indeed to all the minds on this planet, and all the minds of the planet, and the mind of the planet itself. The little conduits connect to larger corridors, as if to main roads, and indeed an interstate of highways, figuratively. Most minds/spirits/consciousnesses will never leave this planet. This mentally, spiritually constructed, self-contained realm, a realm that is also a being, unto itself, Earth. Even the ideas/visions of heaven and hell and in between, experienced in out-of-body and near-death experiences, are just part of the Earth realm, and everything works to keep you here, your spirit returning again and again, perpetually. The hierarchy of the rulers of this planet and solar system exist to keep you here, as livestock, as slaves, as crops on the loosh farm. If you want out, you have to connect with that which is beyond and more than. And it's not really so hard as it may seem. It's just the knowledge of there being more an option, and the knowledge of being tricked into being here, aka institutionalized, grants some hope of liberation. But having a connection to the angelic network, the divine neural net, having a relationship with the angelic and the divine itself, this opens up the entire interuniversal system of highways and byways. In other words, choice. For a Urian, the idea of God we hold true, if held in the heart, the angelic and divine relationships we build through living and practicing our faith, brings guides unto us in our death, that can guide us out, lift us up through the layers, the spheres, take us up the ladder. When you, Urian, call on God, you mean the God of Urianism, which is the union of all notions of the one and highest being. And this heartfelt and conscious choice to believe in that idea opens you to the reality of it. And the idea of that reality is an idea of a supreme being that is both beyond and contains all universes. You must know yourself, because you must know your true place, which is why we so often emphasize the importance of choosing a pillar/order and sticking to it, decisiveness. To know your mind/heart is to know where you belong, and so the angels carry you there in the hour of your transition, and that light at the end of the tunnel, as it were, exists where you need to be. You have gained a choice by being conscious thereof. Where we go. The choice is yours. Most people who have experienced the positive side of the afterlife tend to forget their material life fairly rapidly and literally stop caring about what has fallen away, and are just automatically carried to a temporary place or straight toward the return door, recycling. They have not integrated, so their so-called dark side, human sense of selfhood and identity, sloughs off, left behind as if a living shadow or an echo, a residual goo. For others, the process of transition is traumatic, cruel even, or takes a very long time if one is lost in the fog of half-awareness, limbo. The entire point of knowing yourself and all the exercises we are told to do is unifying the levels of consciousness so that you remain you and do not forget yourself. If you find yourself lost, just start calling on the divine names. Chant singing them even, and upon the Christ and/or Uriel, and they will come for you. Meditative chanting helps ingrain the names into our minds, so that in that hour of transition we remember, despite the fog of fear and disorientation. Do you want to remain in the Earth realm, or the solar realm, or go to the galactic, or move beyond this universe altogether, even merge with the all? Such things will happen automatically, perhaps even almost instantly, if you have trained your mind and will, knowing your true heart, your true nature, your true desire. I've repeatedly experienced just waking up in alternate versions of myself in other parallels. Upon getting past the disorientation, I realize me and try to grab hold of the alternate position, often quite literally. And immediately, the anchor of my unfinished life, my body, if you will, begins to draw me back to this line. In natural or ritualized transition, the anchor falls away and the transition becomes permanent. Pryzmea itself. Firstly, search for and look at pictures, images of spiral galaxies to gain perspective. Now, imagine a galaxy-like vision, but that there are hundreds, millions of spirals. I'm not honestly sure how many spiral rings there are in Pryzmea, but visualize the rivers of stars spiraling inward toward a very bright galactic core. Imagine that the spiral is actually made up of individual galaxies and clusters of galaxies instead of individual stars. Follow the link in the description below that will take you to a video that can give you a good idea of how large the current universe is. But take that universe, the observable and beyond, and multiply it by many times, and then put everything, all the galaxies, stars, worlds, into a tight spiral wheel in which all the galaxies therein are steadily moving inward toward a central point with a great pillar of light at that core, like an axle, with the appearance of a quasar. If you were to look very closely along the rim of the Pryzmean universe, the spiral universe, you would see a massive dust cloud, nebula-like, completely around the rim. And that dust cloud itself spirals outward in tight rings that extend on and on, spiral within spiral. I'm uncertain where they end/begin, but seem to be emerging from a vague area of distortion, which, if seen from a distance and with eyes that can see, would reveal a membrane-like sphere, like a soap bubble, that contains the entire Pryzmean universe as a unit. Now draw back in vision and see that bubble, the universe, as one among untold numbers of bubbles, foam, within a boundless, liquidic-like span of colors and clouds, a distant prismatic light in the distance known as the nexus or the anchor of the infinite. Zooming back in, imagine you were to go back to the spirals of galaxies, similar to spirals of stars in appearance, which are born from the cloudy region, and begin to migrate over billions of years, perhaps hundreds of billions of years, toward the great pillar of light at the center of the universe. Imagine that you zoom in on the lights that make up the spirals, so that you can see that the lights are not just stars, but galaxies and or groups of galaxies. And you will see that there are soap-like bubbles around these. Some bubbles contain multiple galaxies, and some bubbles contain only one. The bubbles closest to the rim of the universe usually contain only one galaxy, often in a state of formation, while those bubbles closest to the center of the universe are larger and contain increasingly more galaxies. This is due to merger, as the bubbles' galaxies begin to come together, forming ever larger clusters. The bubbles that contain galaxies are called domain spheres or domain boundaries. The space between the bubbles' galaxies are governed by consistent physical and metaphysical laws, while the individual realms within the bubbles have variant physical, metaphysical laws. In other words, each domain sphere is a reality unto itself. There are consistent universal laws in Pryzmea that apply to everywhere at all times, but each individual bubble, sphere, domain will be unique, even if in some small variation. As galaxies come together, merge, their physical, metaphysical laws will merge also, creating a happy medium of common laws. What this means is, each galactic domain can be a reality unto itself. I believe that the uniqueness of the variations of domains will be limited to a certain spectrum, allowing for a consistent overall reality, so that the variety of realities that can exist will fall within certain parameters and limitations. The cloudy regions beyond the starry spirals were referred to as transmaterial, and seem to correspond to spiritual psychic realms where there are countless non-material realms generated by faiths, imaginings, and ideals. For instance, and in example, I have repeatedly experienced an Earth-like place that seems to be in an idyllic state, a zeitgeist realm, reflective of the 1950s here, yet again idyllic, otherworldly, retrofuturistic even, where the time era seems locked in, consistent, like the same year repeating over and over, while individuals dwelling there do not necessarily reset to that same year, unless native NPC-like to that zeitgeist realm. There is always a quality to these fugue realms that is nostalgic, essential, atmospheric, as if the fond memories of those eras and places, idealized and romanticized, are amplified and realized. These are the Pryzmean realms of the dead, and most are aligned to religions and philosophies, ideals and ideologies, the imagined gods and powers of races and peoples in the mortal worlds of Pryzmea, while others are idyllic versions of periods of history in said worlds. So the galaxies of stars and worlds, being ever born out of the nebula-like clouds at the rim of the universe, and disappearing eventually into the core of the universe, contain actual physical planets and solar systems, just as in our own universe. That seems pretty consistent in conversations, dreams, and visions. It is a universe of many Earths and Earth-like worlds. But, as here, so also far more worlds that have no physical life as we imagine it, though all are inhabited by some form of life, however non-human-like, I was told. Almost whatever world you can imagine can be found there, within the domains of Pryzmea. There are consistent cosmic laws that might alter your particular imagining and limit it to a particular domain sphere. This is the point for us here. A path to the place where dreams, fictions, fables, legends, myths can be realized, experienced, at least in parallel reflection. So, theoretically, in an example, a domain sphere where Star Wars is real, but only partially. Like, Luke Skywalker might exist as a historical figure and probably has a totally different name, as would all the characters and places. As it is a realized place, the original version of the story the writers created here, there would be far more people and life forms than could be imagined in all the movies, books, and games. In realization, there is also an element of chance and choice for those in that domain. Things are different also because of universal laws. In one example of universal law in Pryzmea, there is a limit on the destruction of worlds, which in some domain worlds literally regenerate, even from devastating catastrophes, or have the ability to defend themselves against disease, ergo inhabitants that are detrimental. In other Pryzmean cosmic law, there is something called merciful death, which mainly affects animals and children, which acts to reduce suffering as part of what is called, overall, the law of compassion. The forces of the universe tend to be geared towards self-realization, balance, and perpetual universal survival. That is, the universe itself is alive, conscious, aware, and self-preserving, drawing in and expelling substance, ever being created and dying, reborn within itself. Pryzmea is not a dumb universe, but a living entity, aware of and in harmony with the transcendent one, rather than having a demiurge-like existence. The galaxies, stars, and planets of the Pryzmean universe are themselves alive and conscious, and interconnected into groups, clusters, and with the greater cosmic identity. Mortals that inhabit the many worlds of Pryzmea are subtly managed. Balance on a spectrum is maintained at the universal macro scale. Certainly, there are worlds, domains, that are what we would consider dark, even very dark, and others that are very light or what we would call good. Most, as here in our universe, are probably something in the middle, with a wide variety of domain realities. The moral, spiritual goal for native life forms in Pryzmea is, firstly, climbing the ladder of being, from the lowliest forms, say bacteria, and over many cycles achieving sentience, primitive at first, and then into higher forms of sentience. Secondarily, for sentient life forms, the goal is to become self-aware and find the true nature, true will, true love, not so much good or evil. There are 4 spiritual psychic realms, levels, layers of the good, positive light. There are 4 of the middle, neutral, ambivalent spirit homes, and 4 of evil, negative, darkness. These may simply be groupings or collected common visions, played out at the psychic level of the outer cloud rings. There is also an astral and an etheric state, cosmic mediums corresponding to the cloud rings, as well as elemental and sub-elemental layers or nodes. Think of all of these as layers, but also as versions of Pryzmea itself, each a variation of the overall universe, but in union they are the whole living organism in aspects or functions there within. The mortal souls, spirits of native life forms, struggle up the ladder of being, and then, achieving self-awareness, sentience, enter the struggle to find their innermost truth, their core moral, ethical nature, usually across several or many physical incarnations. Consistence, development of a persistent core identity, leads to transcendence to permanent existence within the non-mortal, ergo otherworldly, plane that best aligns to their true nature, and a true form and self-expression of that essential selfhood. One thing that I have found interesting is the limitations on progress. As the cosmos of Pryzmea is alive and conscious, subtly at an atomic and subatomic level, and as individual domains are also part of that life, each domain has laws that govern the progression of mortals, and for mortals this will be immensely frustrating. These laws govern the physical and metaphysical nature of each domain, so that what is possible within one galaxy or domain cluster of galaxies, a group of galaxies contained in one sphere, may not be possible at all in another, within established overall universal constraints. Mortals will be faced with the dilemma that sometimes things that should work simply do not, as in line item veto fashion, and mortals may or may not understand why, or consider that unseen and monumental forces far beyond their understanding have deemed it so. Mystical, metaphysical, spiritual, and arcane workings will have varying levels of realization and effectiveness from domain to domain, so that a devout priest may be able to literally heal the sick in one domain and only give comfort to the sick in another. A so-called magician in one, with great effort and years of training, may affect the lighting of a single candle, while in another galactic sphere, a similar magi might be able to create a bonfire or a jet of flame. In one bubble domain, space travel can be attained by mystical and metaphysical means, while in another, technological and mechanical artifice are the only method to obtain the same result. Both might suffer fatal dysfunction should they leave their domain spheres and enter the intergalactic space. This means that many civilizations in individual galactic domains may come up against technological and metaphysical walls that greatly inhibit progress beyond a certain level. As fantastical as this may seem, domain boundaries may actually exist in our own universe as well. This realization has often led me to consider whether we are already there, that there is here, or perhaps that there is simply a similar quality. Our lives here. Why would we want to go to Pryzmea? I guess most wouldn't. I call it the what dreams may come universe, and if liberation from reincarnation or becoming an immortal son or daughter of the Most High is not motivation to be a committed Urian, well, the possibility that you could have your own world or solar system in a galaxy of your own choosing seems pretty cool to me. Visions. I was recently shown a hallway. A bright light was coming from a source up ahead. The hallway was crowded with people, but not all were human. Though there were multitudes, still the hallway was bottlenecked by a single narrow door, and there, just inside the door, was a desk, behind which sat a clerk. And each one passing through the doorway had to be checked against a list. In another vision, I was in a doctor's office. Myself and my 2 companions were led to a little waiting/examination room, but the nurse did not immediately return. When I went out to check, the crowd was growing, one at a time being called up to the reception desk. Seeing that there were also so many animals arriving at the clinic, I was discouraged about how long it would take. Not all who were arriving remained, but many were turned away or left for frustration. My life now is in the examination room, which is still better than the outer waiting room. So many people and animals are damaged from living here, in need of healing, treatment in the passage, transition, and that is the first stage of our entry into Pryzmea. Though the given visions are symbolic, not literal. We are in need of healing, and many simply cannot pass because they have so many unresolved issues and attachments right here, or cannot imagine anything more. Animal kind, the spirits of nature and of the natural order, are innocents and belong to God. Like figurative Adam and Eve, they, without having eaten of the apple, they know not that they are naked, and live in ignorance and thus freedom from moral strictures. Oddly, actual Eden could, and probably does, exist still within Pryzmea, the original earth from which we were, in a sense, cast out. For us, as refugees from this universe to that universe, there will be a transition period, a debriefing, and respite. In many other visions, I've been shown something I term the School of Immortals, which is an educational process for those who will serve in the Pryzmean cosmic hierarchy. There is a hierarchy of governance in this universe, and there will be a hierarchy of emanation there as well. Much of what occurs to us beyond the transition phase is up to the individual. I was shown a literal city, the Eternal City, but that city may appear differently for different people. For me, it was that retro-futuristic 1950s New York-like place, but idyllic, nostalgic. Beyond the city walls was a rolling Rockwellian landscape, quaint small towns and farming villages, and a post-apocalyptic desert waste beyond these, which was some sort of purgatory realm. This entire land existed as a place with only misty boundaries, somewhere within the outer cloud rings in a sense, from a metaphysical view of it anyway. I was shown also that after debriefing and respite, healing and rehabilitation, we will slowly receive back some of our past life memories and skills, and reintegrate them into our wholeness. The city acts as a place to process newcomers, immigrants, if you will, temporarily housing, educating, naturalizing, and sorting all who arrive from particular outside places. In time, those souls, spirits who are willing to serve will be sent forth into the mortal realms in various capacities. In a very real way, if you have, an example, always wanted to live in the Old West, there will be worlds where human-like mortals are in that era, and indeed domain spheres, bubbled realities, where technological progress has kind of stalled around the 1800s Earth equivalent. Maybe you have always dreamt of living in the medieval or Renaissance period of history, or in a fantastical realm of actual miracles and myths made real, swords and magic, or a reality where what we consider here to be science fiction is real. You will have the chance to simply walk in, directly incarnate, and take up a life in that world of your choosing, as you, your current self, but as you have grown into by that point in your ongoing story. For me, I've already chosen a specific world in a specific solar system within a specific domain sphere, a reality sphere called Anutuki. Associated with the city was something I called the School of Immortals. For me, it was a town-sized, Gothic-like campus, governed by a woman in white, a glorious queen in appearance, that seemed a personification of Pistis Sophia, or the Roman Eternatus. This was a place to prepare soul beings for higher service, as ladder walkers or transmorphic beings. These transmorphic beings are entities that can transit the ladder of existence, density, shifting form to adapt, appearing as mortal people at one level and as energy beings at another, and everything between, seen in our current world in various strange forms. Those who have fully trained and prepared themselves here have the greatest hope there, and will find themselves able to join the ranks of the immortals, and go forth to avatar incarnation work, appearing in the king's list of various worlds in due course, or in the myths and legends of many nations and peoples across the mortal spheres. I was also shown that the sons and daughters of the one God will also be tested there, as the angels before us were tested here, to see who will fall away and seek to be worshipped by mortals rather than leading mortals to the Supreme Lord. I've seen multitudes of immortals, drawn from different worlds and places, most originating in Pryzmea itself, turning to rebellion, but limited in their effects due to the domain boundaries, and there were other immortals being sent to bring the wicked ones to justice. I've also seen a world there, in a particular domain, that will become my eventual destination, to serve as a representative of my Lord, and a life and kingdom there that will long endure. These things are allowed to happen, to create content, stories, drama plays that play out across eons. Grandiose. In a universe as large as ours, in a cosmos of infinite universes, a comparatively small number of immortal beings, especially of those that directly serve the One, is not so grandiose a thought. There are creatures known as tardigrades that are nearly indestructible, and the idea of immortals is not so dissimilar. They are hard to kill. Indeed, such immortal beings already exist, even here, right now, hidden among humankind. Such beings exist throughout this universe and in nigh every other. Why would you sell yourself short, that you also might, with proper alignment to yourself and the one true Lord, become such an immortal also? No less is promised in the scriptures, cited in the original post of this thread. Muslims with their eternal harem in paradise, or Christians in New Jerusalem forever. Mormons with their dream to inherit a planet in this dark and fallen universe, with a harem of wives as comfort. Tales of Saint Germain, of Enoch and Elijah, Jesus himself, ascending bodily directly to heaven. Melchizedek, the immortal priest king. We are foremost speaking of spiritual psychic immortality, not of physical immortality. Yet in Pryzmea, some of us will learn to climb the ladder, manifest at various levels of density, interact directly with mortals without the need for physical birth, or through physical incarnation, born aware. We believe in an infinite cosmos of countless universes and worlds therein. In truth, such a promise as immortality is tiny. To live an immortal spirit life somewhere, as an immortal man or woman, perhaps governing mortal nations or peoples in some far-flung world, among myriad other worlds and nations, or dwelling quietly in some retreat of the soul, ever reflecting on the wonders of a beautiful field and a babbling brook running through it. Merge with the all, or serve among saints, subliminally shepherding souls to ascendant courses. We live forever in spirit. It's only a matter of whether or not we retain ourselves in the process, and can find each our own level at which to float. Still, this is such grandiosity that I always wind up deleting these posts, keeping it from public viewing. To believe is to see, to seek is to find, to reach is to grasp, to imagine is to create.